excited to have you on. I've been following you on Twitter for a while now, so I know this doesn't come as a total surprise with Chick-fil-A. Were the signs that they were heading this way already there?
Well, unfortunately, they have been. Chick-fil-A, despite being God's chicken and a favorite fast food stop for many conservative Christians, and quite frankly, every American across the country, we've seen them slipping down the woke slope here for a little bit. They stopped, I believe, donating to the Salvation Army under pressure a few years back. And then we saw their founders certainly doing some inappropriate woke things during the Summer of Love in response to BLM. So the signs are there, but this latest one, exactly like you said, it's bowing to the corporate god because DEI is a deity. It's just a false one.
That it is. And also, as you were saying, as you were referencing to a moment ago with their CEO at the time in the 2020 riots, washing the feet, but on a very racial type bias on race, basically. They were deifying, instead of doing it as a Christian brotherly love of neighbor, as God asks of us in the Bible, they were making it almost a pagan worship and worship of these false idols of diversity, quote unquote, as such, just as a telos in and of itself, not ordered toward God properly. We see this a lot with the DEI type language of inclusion and loving, and it sounds great because social justice, these words belong to the Christian faith and have for centuries, for millennia, but now they've been all turned topsy-turvy on top of their heads, made to actually proclaim the exact opposite of what they're supposed to be defined as. So have you noticed the strange trend that as Christianity as such recedes, you can look at, less people identifying as Christian, less people going to church on Sundays, that now we've gotten back a woke form of it where we've gotten rid of God, but we've tried to keep up some of the language almost in a weird skin suit of it.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think what people need to realize is that DEI is just simply, corporate Marxism, right? It's just another branch of cultural Marxism. And the long, slow march through the institutions has now reached chicken sandwiches. And, quite frankly, it's a business mistake on Chick-fil-A's part because they're politicizing something that they don't need to be politicizing, right? And at the end of the day, DEI is completely incompatible with a Christian worldview, with a view of man, with a view of justice, with a view of equal rights and responsibilities under law, and not because of our skin color, our gender, or wherever we land on the intersectional chart these days. So Chick-fil-A is trying to sort of split the baby here, but only King Solomon was wise enough to pull that off. And I don't think it's going to work for them in the long term here.
No, and it's such a sad state of affairs where we found ourselves sitting in almost the same position as you were mentioning earlier, how the Marxists, through social engineering, the USSR and all the nations that fell behind the Iron Curtain for 50, 60, 70 years, where they found themselves where men and women were being separated, sent to the factory all day, kids were being raised by the state to be indoctrinated fully, God was kicked out of the public square, the new gods of the propaganda of the USSR was then enthroned for everyone, godless materialism. And it's sad that we found ourselves in a very similar situation, but by taking a different route. And that's because we got rid of God in our markets and everything else. We made it all about cost efficiency and money and making money. And God, who's that? Throw him out the door. And unfortunately, we found ourselves in a very similar godless, materialist, liberal, secular worldview. So when it comes to DEI, are those principles at all compatible with Christianity? Because I know on Twitter, you've been going back and forth with some who say, well, actually, you can make it work. You can make these fit together.
Well, I don't think you can. And it's because, again, DEI is a form of Marxism. And the great titanic worldview and religious clash of our present age in the last century has been between the false materialistic view of Marxism versus, quite frankly, the Christian worldview, which says that our rights come from God, who is our creator, who rules over all, including the state, and endows men equally with rights, and that those rights should be preserved and secured under law, where Marxism slices and dices people up into oppressor and oppressed, and is sort of driving the train of history towards this cultural revolution. And now we understand that that cultural revolution was not manifest in economic terms as Marx predicted. And so instead, it's been translated through the Frankfurt School into cultural terms. And that's what we get now with Chick-fil-A. And quite frankly, Chick-fil-A, again, they're trying to incorporate something like oil and water, like light and dark. When you bring DEI into a organization that's supposed to be founded on family values, quite frankly, it's going to subvert those family values. And one day they will have to choose who they serve, God or Marx, God or DEI.